Hello to all my people watching. I am doing amazing, and I would like to present to you the next edition of the Human Element. Yeah, so let's dive right into it, right? But before we get into any of that, I have been expanding into my domain, coming in contact with things that are truly within it. So I decided to start with a song. Okay? Before we get into the lesson, we'll sing a little bit with a bowl. We'll sing. All right. There we go. Take a couple breaths. Settle in. Here we go. There's a chain of distribution in energy that is likened to the flowing of a stream, and an environment with units, separate units that come together with similarities, organisms, families. When things are flowing in an optimal manner, energy is distributed equally, fairly, and all the energy that needs to go where it needs to go goes where it needs to go. I say that because there is a wealth of knowledge and tools, assistance, pretty much everything that you can put under the umbrella of empowerment. All of that, as far as the distribution, it's not as great as it could be. I would go as far to say as it needs to be repaired, because it's not seen as the source for the inability for people to repair. And people are powerful people. We are the locus of value and meaning. We are the ones that attribute and detail and describe and transcribe and transpose and connect All these different things. This is why we're at the top of the food chain. There's no other reason. We do not have these physical feats that most beasts have. And being that it seems that we're drifting away from implementing actual natural ethics into our environment, of course, the value is held. I'm just saying it would be nice to have some more gardens and third places and things of the like, so that people could communicate without having to depend on their category so much, you know? Without public places in sufficient number spanned across, it's just a lack of distribution as far as people who think differently but still live in the same neighborhood, who would have more opportunity to pass tools of empowerment, not aiming to empower each other, just living our lives and things of that nature. But we all have something to share. We all have tools, and there is a trend that contributes to a heightened difficulty accessing a centered place of operation. And it's difficult. It's made difficult. There's so many different things that contribute to that. One of those things I'd like to break down for me personally, because I would like to be a little bit more detailed in that. Last time I got angry. I got mad last time. I'm not gonna apologize for it. Though I did, it reminded me about how I started my journey and the energy that I had in mind and the energy that is most natural to me. And I'm grateful that I have the ability to have my own set of priorities that are not greatly affected by the whims of society and their blind allegiance. I'd like to talk about the projects because before I think I mentioned something about my culture and an aspect of it that was not positive. My culture is a beautiful culture. It's an expansive culture. It's a love culture. It's a respected culture. It's a world-renowned culture. It's loved. And a point to distribution, something I just mentioned. It seems that melanated people don't get that love distributed to them, right? It's so much of an abundance for all that is not what I just mentioned to be funneled into the projects and circulated and rumigated and promoted, advanced, right? And these are unseen things within the projects. People who live it, they live it, and people are beautiful, man. Struggle, everything is just always the capacity to extract something valuable and from those experiences is just amazing to me. And it's unjust that people who are so capable and people, they get set up in this ring of, it's just, designed to break down the spirit of man. It's important to be aware that things could be designed to break your spirit. So when you place your blame into something, if you are more knowledgeable in the underlying causes of what you're blaming, you'd gain understanding, and with that understanding, you rid yourself of the need to blame, which is where I'm at right now. Sorry, I'm getting a call. I didn't like that, so I'm just gonna put my thing on airplane mode for a little bit. You know, you can cut that out. Didn't like that call one bit. Beautiful people, beautiful struggle. And what is the project designed to do? What is my perspective that I would like to portray that I believe has some value as far as the projects? It's just observations. So, humans are creatures of habit. And if you know that, what you gain is the ability to be aware of the fact that you gravitate towards certain things for certain reasons. And some of those things that you gravitate towards could not be so beneficial. And they could. So that's where you learn trial and error, make mistakes, discernment. The victim mentality it's so heavy, and it was in the projects, you know. Victim mentality was the projects. It's like there's a theme with people. Oh, because I'm black, and the apprehension. And it goes beyond the projects, but I just wanted to start with the projects because things like police brutality and all that, they all come together to create a theme, and the theme promotes a school of thought. And the theme promoting the school of thought, and then the promotion being accepted, is what would be considered brainwashing. So any element of brainwashing, there is an intentional, voluntary aspect, because as people, being the locus of meaning and value, we also have the ability to make decisions. And quick sidebar, free will has been questioned. Free will or not free will. And I would love to push or promote language and communication in such a way to where when questions like that are presented, they're broken down in a manner to where they can actually be tackled, as opposed to approached relatively through different lenses. What do I mean by that? Okay, do we have free will? Well, okay, let me ask you a question. Do you have the ability to make a decision? What is your answer to that? Yes or no? Depending on yes or no, depends on where we go. Do you have the ability to make a decision? Maybe you think a little bit longer about that. And that would make a lot of sense because that would mean that you're thinking about the most important parts of the original question I was asked. Do we have free will? Well, what is free will dependent on? I would say free will is dependent on my ability to make decisions. So, can you make a decision? Well, I can. Okay, so if you think that you can make the decisions, what we're highlighting is that there are other factors at play that inhibit your ability to access your firmness in decision making, but that does not denote in any time whatsoever your God-given right to make a decision, which means you're a responsible, capable, powerful human being. And if you say no, which I would love to hear an argument for, that would be creative, and I always love hearing the opposing ends of arguments because it's more realistic to get to the solution or the optimal way when both of those things are presented. Do you have the ability to make a decision? No. I don't really have any theses on that if you want to contribute to it too. But that is an example of when a question is presented, breaking it down and highlighting the elements that truly contribute to answering the question optimally across categories, finally, efficiently. Do we have free will? That question needs work. It needs help. It needs to be run through a thinking mind process. Things like that. It's overseen. I remember raising through levels in consciousness, realizing, growing up in Flatbush, wow, we really have almost every other culture in our environment making money from us. That's something. And it's not something that was never brought up before, but in my elevations in consciousness and looking at things through a deeper perspective, realizing the pattern and the depth of the pattern. Oh, it's a setup. The setup is get comfortable. And through exiting my culture, I realized that things that we blame are often all under the umbrella, seemingly separate things. They all fall under one thing and one source. And because I've come to realize that there's a pattern of things created that are not so optimal coming from one source, it's allowed me to position myself in a certain way over time, dodging certain things, right? And I would say my experience in the hood, in the projects, is not all that negative. Like me personally, I've had some real experiences. It's not anything that you haven't heard of. But it's things that happen on the street. And this is a promotion of an environment, and certain things are accepted within the environment. If I was to walk into a NYCHA building, it'd be like two elevators. They're slow, they're outdated. There's always someone pissing in them. If it's not piss, it's some unusual, unnamed substance that's sticky on the floor. An elevator is out. There's 20 floors. And there's always a line of people outside because the elevators are always going out of service. People are always complaining. They're not nice to each other. And that's only one aspect of a whole thing. it's very possible to highlight aspects of what I or little bits of pieces of what I just said, and then just say that everything that's happening there is bad. What I want to do is highlight what is not bad. Like it's not bad because I go from projects and then I go to a residential building, and the mentality is the determining factor. If people who were in those kind of buildings were to ever make the decision to, when the elevator goes out, coordinate calls to whichever sector is supposed to handle that and do so consistently in number, they would see change in their environment. And think about culturally, right? You have the Karen, and what is the Karen? The Karen is the person who brings their complaints to the highest capable person dealing with whatever's going on, right? So I'm pointing to a cultural difference in mentality and apprehension. In the projects or in project spaces, it's much less motivation to bring complaints to places where they can be handled. And that is because of a myriad of things that fall under one umbrella. I'm bouncing. When I go to another neighborhood, I realize that often when I'm watching white people and they're raising their children, European people, they're letting their child breathe, walk, take space. They're being patient with them. They're not rushing them when they're walking. They're taking their time. They're living life. Next scene. The mama's angry. She's tired. She got places to be. She's rushing her child, XYZ. And I could go and I could bring up very obvious deterrents for happiness. Police brutality, they don't like black people, racism, XYZ, XYZ. On this particular channel, my purpose is power. Seeing power, knowing power, in the varying ways that power manifests. Because as long as you're plugged into one overall overarching theme of apprehending the world, then you rob yourself of the variations that would lead you to really seeing things as they are. And I think that would be called tunnel vision. But it's tunnel vision through the engagement in a system that is pretty much all pervading in your environment. So is there an element of it to where it's not your fault? Up to a certain point. Yeah. And fault is subjective, you know. Some people genuinely are born to do their work in their lives, living their lives in those environments, communicating with those people, helping those people through whatever they're going through while they're living their lives. That's one part. The other part is, if you can motivate people in their upbringing to operate in a manner that benefits them over time, and the distribution of something that I just described like that, which would sound like it makes sense. It makes sense to distribute that kind of upbringing all across. So if I'm bringing people up, no matter the environment, whether affluent, in the middle, or broken down poor, there would be a distribution, not necessarily of money and resources, 100% money and resources, not only limited to, but the thing that teaches people how to fish, so to speak, right? Teach people how to fish. Teach people how to be. Teach people what fits in what. Because when I go and I'm in certain situations, I hear people complain, and I have a solution for them. Man, it's everything's always bad around here, XYZ. And if you're in the projects, you're not really getting those kinds of mental food as far as how to battle those negative things, or not even battling the things, but overcome them. Because battling the negative things is kind of playing into negative things, which most times means you're getting sucked into negativity. Battling negativity most times means getting sucked into negativity. The true form of battling negativity is prioritizing that which is not, and aligning yourself with that. So in the projects, what I see is not an incapability. I don't see the common things that come up as to why people are suppressed in particular parts. It's not the all-pervading reasons. Police brutality is not the all-pervading reasons. Racism in the workplace is not the all-pervading reasons. The fact that if I was to walk down the street on Flatbush and they got a Chinese food store, the Chinese people doing the feet, they got the Indian guys and the Crown Fried, the Hala man, and Ak behind the counter. And another credit to my people, right? My people in these environments where all these energies are flying around, just living their lives, making it happen. And they come to Ak, they create a relationship with Ak. You know what? Sometimes Ak behind the deli don't even like black people. And that happens more oftentimes than, like, Ak don't like you, my dude. And that's really funny how that distribution of love within the culture seems to go to the people. It's just all around. There's a suboptimal aim in the media, in the way that the mainstream thinks. It's a suboptimal way. It's not complete. And it's missing the human element. It really is. And the human element is seen as the underlying. I'm trying to make it as clear as I possibly can. There's a whole series. Faith in, when I bring this to completion, it'll actually form a picture. I'm not hoping to tackle I couldn't tackle all the things that I want to tackle in any one video talking about any particular one thing. I really do have to bounce around quite a bit. I'm allowing myself to bounce around. I've had trials that I've been going through as far as owning my abilities, even though they're so unique and I don't have many a model to go off of for how to structure myself. And even though that's true, I'm still doing an amazing job. I'm just The power of my people. I love the people. And the projects. Prospectively, through my analysis, I would say the fundamental or the most detrimental factor right now of the projects as far as mental programming is concerned is the proclivity to be unilateral and stuck in limited modes of thinking. By unilateral, I mean there's a myriad of black people. When I say black people, when I say melanated people, there's so many different kinds of people and representations and faces, agents of the diaspora, representatives. And they all have different temperaments, likes, dislikes, fancies, if you will. And they're all black. And another thing I'd like to break down in the human element, when I start really kicking into gears, I'll just be tackling things like race, black and white. It can't, conversations like that can't suck up unnecessary time in the world of people who think about people, right? Like, it's really simple. People are people and people are different. If you have an environment and the environment has certain themes, certain conditions, the majority of the people who grow up there are going to be affected by those certain themes and certain conditions. So you go in that environment and say that now you go outside, black people in this environment are like this. Okay, so it's black people, but no, now look at the environment. You don't got to tell that to thinking people. Thinking people, when they see things, you don't have to tell them anything. They come to the conclusion of, oh, people are people are different, humanity is a beautiful thing. They see capability, they also see the hardships and all those other things and people's faults, but we forgive each other and we move on, and that's a beautiful thing. And the load that has been put on my people it's actually very disrespectful when it's broken down in its many ways. I'm going to try to do that for just a little bit. Okay, so Ku Klux Klan, they go around and they terrorize, and they are, I would say, one of the biggest contributors canonically to the victim mentality in black people, right? And why not? It's such an effective way to do that. I don't want to steer anyone away from the fact that music has gotten worse. Video games have gotten worse. Movies have declined in quality. Products for use have declined in quality. People are spending less time with each other. People are losing the ability or the interest to fully engage with each other. What is that? That's a theme. If I had to name the theme, I would say that theme would be something along the lines of a decline in spirit. Okay. Put that pin in. The Ku Klux Klan, they come, they terrorize. There's books already on what they've done. Don't really want to get into that. But the timing in which they're doing the things that they're doing is very interesting. Like during voting periods, why would you terrorize people who don't have any power or any influence or any ability to change anything if that were true? And I would love the most simplest of my breakdowns that I'm giving right now in this very moment to just be understood by people who are downtrodden by the ills of the projects, the ills that are obvious to me and the people that are in it, but from the outside world, it just doesn't click for some reason. I mean, and how could it when it's so obvious that the media could give you an image of what a place is like, and if you don't go there, you'll never know what those people are really like, what that place is really like, how it really feels there. They'll give you enough to make an idea along the lines of what they want you to think about that place. Until you expand your domain, enter new territory to bring yourself closer to reality by the way of humbling yourself truly and realizing that you are amongst brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers in the greatest time to be alive. And you're a human being who learns by trial and error, which means forgiveness is woven into the very way that we get things done. It comes together. Trial and error. You have to learn. You have to make mistakes. Sometimes you're in circumstances to where you can't make the mistakes that you need to make to learn what you need to learn to advance in a certain manner. Forgive yourself. If you're in a circumstance at a time to where you're not within your master of the universe center, and I would say you classify as a victim, certainly not to be taken out of hand and championed, right? Because now it seems like the victimhood is being championed. It's like, here's my badge, they hurt me. Beautiful people in the projects. The project's designed to get people comfortable killing each other, hating each other. Also contributing to shunning the love that is had for the people there from actually getting into the community. People who are struggling with with the environments that I'm dealing with right now, that are basically plagued by the installments and acceptance of suboptimal behavior, which is a sabotage of sorts. Why is it a sabotage? Because we're creatures of habit. So if we're creatures of habit and I construct an environment specifically catered to limit you in a dual manner, first by entrapping you and giving you all the negative things that you could possibly need to bring yourself down and keep yourself down. And secondly, by distorting, deflecting, and reflecting all of the most positive perceptions of your gorgeous embodiment in this planet, despite the fact that you're downtrodden and constantly berated by said environment. There's still environments that are entirely different from yours that love you. And the system, and one of the functionings of the system that I'm pertaining to, is the fact that you could live your life suffering in that environment, never know that love. And part of never knowing that love would be voluntary. So were you sabotaged? Yes. Do you still have a degree of responsibility? Yes. At a certain point, when you reach a certain amount of capability, if you're trying to reach a certain amount of capability. And this is why I'm being guided to be a leader, because it seems as though the things that I'm saying and the things that I'm doing are not being done. I've been dulling by not allowing myself to be the intellectual that I am and the free spirit that I am and powerful man that I am. But I'm really good at falling and picking myself back up and redirecting myself. I've made plenty of mistakes. The way that I perceive things, especially up to this point, it's like I'm just powerful, and the closer I get to feeling comfortable owning that, the closer I get to not relating to what I know to be weakness. Like I can't relate to weakness. Like constant complaining, like I can't relate to it. And if I can't relate to it, that creates a clear distortion from someone who's used to dealing with a traditional person. It's clear. It's like, oh, I don't even, like I don't, this limit that you just mentioned doesn't apply to me. That limit that you mentioned doesn't apply to me. I operate outside of the realm of those limits and those worries, like truly within my truest body, my closest centered body. I've reached a point not of immunity, but coherence. Beautiful people in the projects, surrounded by constant negative ethic, moral value, suboptimal aim. So that's sabotage, all of that sabotage, mental sabotage. And in the physical environment, and the fact that to change something that's been so long standing is truly difficult, because to do so, you'd have to thoroughly elevate the people, or a great majority of the people in that environment, to a mentality, to a framework that they themselves can operate from, to where they are not binded by the things that are no longer able to bind them. Because truthfully, revolution is easy at this particular point in time. It's easy because the human element is felt all across the board, even between the people who are not sensitive and not the most aware, not the most keen in the spiritual lingo. it's still felt and it's still called for and it's still recognized by the heart when it's embodied, right? When it's embodied, like right now, embodying a certain aspect of myself, there are people who could come see it and they'll just feel reinvigorated by my embodiment. It may have something to do with the fact that I'm melanated and maybe they just don't see many of that embodying themselves in a particular manner. So, be the change you want to see in the world. I took that and I ran with it. What does that mean? That means I had to adopt responsibility. So, I adopted responsibility and I adopted responsibility in a manner that, or from a place in which I was honestly aiming for the most optimal outcome for myself and for others. How do I do that? Be the change that I want to see in the world. Okay, that means that you're actually looking for a missing link and you're not pointing fingers and putting it in the hands of someone else so you can continue actually being a contributor to the problem, because that's why I get so riled up and I get so angry, because of just my level of awareness with all these things. But I've come to a level to where I've allowed myself to actually be seen and talk to people to where I realize, oh, my rank is, I didn't know that the things that I could do was just that uncommon. Like I knew that I knew that I was treated as an uncommon person. I knew that I was recognized as something that was different. And that has been a clear part of my evolution as far as being an empath and just noticing how people react to things. So really, I grew up in the projects and there's all these elements that contribute to the aim of trying to make it as difficult as possible to enter the centered state of being and adopt a mode of embodiment that empowers you to change things that you want to change, as opposed to saying that you are a victim of these circumstances that should be better because other people could make them better. So when I see something that says be the change that you want to see in the world, what I see is choose. Choose. Choose to complain and be a contributor to the very thing that you're complaining about in reality. Not the addition of all the information that you have right now, because the addition of all the information that you have right now is not reality, especially if you're not expanding your domain, jumping into new territories, clashing with other ideals, morals, ethics, and values to see you don't even know where you rank in the world. You just know. And that's another thing. Everything seems to be placed in the exact wrong place. But like this arrogance in places where it doesn't make sense to have arrogance. And things like that just contribute to faulty distribution in love, in money, in information. There's people who don't know things because they're not being told, but these things are things that should definitely be told. And what is that? What is that right there I just highlighted? I just highlighted that there's a bunch of people who aren't doing their job. Like, really think about it. And when I say that, there's no way for me to go into this human element, talk about how powerful I'm becoming, and allow myself to do this so that I can become my highest self without placing the appropriate responsibility in your hands. And that's something that I'm no longer willing to struggle with, which is why I feel so much lighter. I just feel so much lighter now. It's like because I have a way of thinking that grants me rights and privileges in the universe all around, right? I have rights and privileges. And I would love to be able to impart that to people, especially when they show interest. Like, if you have this whole scheme of value in your mind, right? And the value is something along the lines of cars, mansions, big booty girls, the pool. Maybe you want a jumbo jet, or maybe it's a little bit died down. You just want the big house by the water, like you can just walk out and just go for a stream and just come back with the L-shaped couch, cozy with the fireplace. Maybe something a little eccentric. Maybe you think you have all these things and the value and where they're placed, and just jumping here, maybe this particular person sees someone like me, not specifically me because I'm not the only one who has the light. Maybe that person sees someone like me who has a completely different set of personalized, prioritized values based on what they've experienced expanding into territories, not what they've experienced dealing with the same kinds of people who don't have any conflicting views. Conflicting views don't have to result in conflict. And conflicting views in a world where people communicate optimally, conflicting views do not conflict. And if they do conflict, maybe that what I just said is not absolutely true. If they do conflict, the outcome of conflictions that arise are far less detrimental, and they make more sense. And by make more sense, I'll use a meter. They make more sense because if a child is to manifest in this world, they won't raise an eyebrow at it. Children come in the world with fresh eyes, and they look and they just, right? That's a good meter. For the children that's tapped in, at least, not every child is. People are powerful. I grew up in an environment of extremely capable people. They're all doing capable things, and they're all dealing with a problem that's not being spoken about at mass. That if it was, we'd be able to pick out a string, and when we look at the string, we'll say, "Hey, isn't this so-and-so string?" And what you have now is a revolution, because a whole body of afflicted, oppressed, depressed, suppressed people are able to put aside their varied views, to put aside their beloved, biased beliefs, and look at the string and say, "Hey, yeah, we should go see this guy. Let's go talk to the guy whose string this is, because he's been causing us a lot of trouble." It takes time to get there. For people to do the things like solve problems, they have to become capable of solving those problems. They may not believe that they have to become capable of those problems, but that is all part of the mechanism. Why would you be born into a world where there's people who have power, who are greedy, who will allow you to have true power? And you're just, like, they're just giving you everything, all the gold, all the glitter, everything that you're told is just true. And that's where discernment comes in, because there's always an aspect. Is there a benevolent spirit that breezes through the people, through words, breezes through the media, through positive affirmations, breezes through people's realities by uplifting encounters with animals or things of that nature? That spirit which affects so many things, does that spirit exist? Yes. Very positive outcomes. There are openings that lead to teaching people to true power. Mainstream America culture programming on how to live life, not power. You have to go a little bit deeper to find that power. You have to go into the ethic. You have to go into the behaviors. And you have to go into the heart of genuinely wanting to understand why those behaviors are beneficial. And if you're not there, you're not there. I've come to learn through just jumping between the Bible and the Quran and other sorts of guides that I've been reaching out for as to how to do my job, that my duty as a man is to expand the garden, right? So I could sit here and I could bring up evil like most people do and complain, and I can bring up the man and how difficult he's made my life growing up as an individual, realizing at a very young age that I was being programmed to become accustomed to limiting myself to a particular category of people, of which did not sit well with me, understanding at my young age that I had a great capacity and that people in all of their variants, varying ways, none of that is reasons for branching off. Now, as far as when people grow and they gather other ideals and values and knowledges, okay, they become more firm and they become more individual. But that's ideal as well. If you could promote a balance of individuality with the embrace of the difference of another person, and teach between discernment between what is detrimental and very simple. There's themes and trends, and people see these themes and trends, especially teachers, right? Especially teachers on the ground who actually teach, who have a certain ethic, who have a certain moral, who want to impact in a certain way with certain messages. And I would say those are true teachers, because those are teachers that help. That's the kind of spirit that helped me come to a point to where I can speak in this manner. Come to a point to where I could learn to love and love to learn. I started loving to learn. And I'm realizing that learning to love is a struggle. But it's all a necessary part in the human element. Because there's gaps. And these gaps, there's no way to tell how that affects things as time progresses. The more time progresses, the more the effect of that thing expands. The vacuum of space left by, personally for me, I've been diving into my psyche and analyzing past experiences recently to pick out the instances in which I retreated, so to speak, and I shrunk, so to speak, and I dimmed my light and things of that nature. And I really analyzed how things played out and how things played out when I was in a state that wasn't susceptible to those kinds of pathways in thinking. There's that state of thinking, and then there's the state that is above that state of thinking, which is the state in which you access your most optimal abilities, because you're beautiful and you are capable. You're capable because you have the capacity to increase your capacity. And the extent to which your capacity could increase is not known by anybody. Truly. Yet, if it's extracted, it can come to be loved by all. And it should be loved by all, because that's what it's worth. Our values, our ability to place value on things comes with responsibility. As we mature as a species in our ability to think about concepts and conceptualize and play with ideals. Like there's people right now, Nietzsche said some things. Dostoevsky said some things. People are playing with these ways to look at the world, to act in the world. Why would you design an environment first most, why would you design an environment to promote people to stay where they are and have the circulation of their money continually be impeded by other cultures? I'm reverse engineering right now, because there's very specific elements. The same elements that people could use to say that, or that I could use to say that I'm a victim, or think of myself as a victim in the realm of my upbringing. I deny that. Why? Because from my perspective, all I see is power. Glorious power. I see power and beauty in all people, especially knowing capacity, the capacity to make a decision. I believe people can make decisions, and because I believe people can make decisions, I believe people have free will. I also know that there are elements and contributing factors towards limiting options in decision makings, or narrowing it down to one that would be considered the optimal one. But just because there's a decision that pops up as optimal, that does not take away my decision to make a suboptimal decision. It's like I have no choice. It's like if you were creative, you have a lot of options, actually. And then there are the situations to where the circumstances and the context literally leaves you with no options but one thing. Still power. And that's the paradox of the universe. This power in the embrace. If you wind up in a situation, because not all situations are situations to where you can just have a myriad of options. There are seasons, times change. Either way, there's power. There's the power in making a decision, and there's the power in making a decision to surrender to the fact that you're clearly being, I guess, from my perception, is many perceptions could be placed into what I just said. But what I'll plug into is you could very well choose to be as optimal as you can. I kind of lost my train of thought there. But anyway, that's that. All I see is power, and all I see is, my light. All I see is power, and all I see is love. I just see capable people. That's all I can see. Police brutality, legislation, rework what's being seen right now, right? And this really woke me up to a perspective that's closer to reality. Even though I'm realizing that my people are basically being apprehended by all other cultures, right? We're just all forces. And it's intriguing, the system of it, because it's not like it's a promotion. It's a promotion. It's not the fault of the cultures. The cultures come here and the structure is set up a certain way to where it's easier for them to get into a certain position. When ox come over here, they get help to get in a certain position. When Hyun comes over here, she gets help get into a specific position. They got the family back home. So what am I saying? They're coming here not knowing how things work. So when they come here and they start their lives, how could they possibly know that what they're doing is essentially monetarily pillaging the culture of melanated people? There's no way they can know that they're contributing to that. What's also part of the system? Complacency. You came here. This is how the system works. You don't really fight against the system. Why should these other cultures fight against the system for us? They literally came here with their own brainwashed idea of how things work here. Right? And that's what I mean by being elevated to a state beyond pointing fingers. Beyond that. And when you get there, you take the proper responsibility. It's a struggle to get there. I'm struggling. I guess I showed a little bit of that struggle on the last video, which I do not apologize for. How am I getting a call? How? Like how? How are you calling me? That's so weird. I'm on airplane mode. That's weird. Oh, I got a Wi-Fi call. We're not doing that anymore. Yeah, not doing that anymore. I hope y'all with me right now. Every fear, like when I speak about the things that I speak about, it's like a room shakes, and I'm realizing what I have to do for myself to be in my own personal domain, to where the things that I need to distribute between the people actually get distributed. You know, that's my responsibility, because people, upon meeting me, do not know my experiences, and they are in they're not in a position as I am to make use of that. You know, they have their own domain. This is about expanding the domain. This is about mastering the domain too. Because when you expand into outer territories, what you're doing is expanding your relative domain, the domain relative to you, what you know about in the world, the options that you have available to you. The amount of support that you have, all of that changes. The way that you speak would change. Allowing yourself to be embraced by all that which you allow yourself to be embraced by, that which calls to you. If you have an idol, if I were to be an idol, I would love to constantly clarify that though I have specific ways in my character that could be considered cool, the underlying objective is to get the message and align yourself with it in whichever way is authentic to you. You don't have to have a model and mimic them to the T as your approach to growth. You don't have to cherry pick their qualities and their specifics. What you need to do is listen and ask yourself if you truly respect the person that you admire. Because if you admire someone, there's an subconscious, maybe unconscious element of respect. But that element of respect has to be made conscious, and it has to be clarified as true. Because now when you say, I respect my idol, you allow yourself to open your ears see beyond whatever projections you're placing onto a person at the time. It's funny, some people only operate by projecting and placing people into categories. And people who are accustomed to doing those things, when they run into one of the light, they always have a hard time. They're always what is he? What is she? What are they? Just a human. If you were to clash the two together, you see that the person that's always staring and always looking has all of these mechanisms and biases and teams that they pick, and elements of acceptance for inhumane things or things that are not so beneficial for humanity. And the other side has other things posing that. My duty as a man is to expand the garden. I was born in the world, and I realized a trend at a very young age, which is why I guarded my inner child and my ability to have internal imaginations and think for myself and things of that nature. I was given that awareness and I made that decision at a very young age. It's been a challenging time for me, and it's been very, very beneficial, especially coming to this point now. I struggle, but I don't struggle like other people struggle. I hear the way other people struggle, and I'm glad that I made the decision that I made as early as I made it. Though, because of my personal circumstances, the fact that I was dealing with some heavy negative forces, nobility, my aim for nobility really carried me along. Have to expand the garden. I don't, it gets tired after a point, always talking about what the man is doing. We have to get the teams situated, right? Like in your teams is going to be the investigators, right? When the revolution happens, everybody has their part. Like imagine this. This is maybe not the most. I'm not going to downplay myself on this one actually. Imagine this. So a revolution starts coming around, and people actually drop their weapons. They drop their Jericho walls. They drop their prejudice. And they come and they bump heads together in real time, in real life, to solve real problems. Okay. A lot of things happen in between that. But at some point, there comes that level of maturity in all of that bouncing around between the elevation of those people. It's a maturing of sorts, and it's a social maturing, it's a communication maturing, it's a human maturing, a maturing in humanity when that kind of thing is undertaken. And when people become more mature, they become more responsible. And then we become more responsible, they are able to think about handling the things that they need to handle in a way that actually contributes to the thing getting handled. So when you're thinking about contributing to something getting handled, you're thinking about a problem, you're not getting caught up in complaining about it. Or if you are, it's not a drawn out complaint that doesn't really lead to anything. You're thinking about it in a way to where it's like, okay, problem, can I do this myself? No, I need help. I'm going to get help. Can I get help? I'm getting the help. I have the help. We're going to get the problem. They know what to do. I'm putting my head together. Like, it's really simple, actually. It's very simple. And so what does it look like? Well, you have a whole bunch of people who were different people before they came together, right? Like, okay, lawyers, and they probably have their ideal and schematics of the world, and then you have your journalists, and you have the ideals and schematics of the world, and you have the artists, and you have the ideas and schematics of the world, and then you got the people in the projects. You got the people in the projects. They have their ideas and schematics of the world, the way that they act in the world. That is not invalid. It holds weight in a certain domain. Man, you know how beautiful that's gonna be? A couple of lawyers, a couple hood heads, a couple artists come together. Everybody does what they need to do. What do we need? oh, we need to get our act together. We need to get our story straight. We need to get all our facts straight. We need to get our case set. Okay, all the people who need to get their case set, get their case set. Lawyers, artists, converge. Okay, we have our case. What's the next part? Okay, well now we gotta take it to the people. Okay, what's the plan? Who's gonna come with us to deliver? Oh yeah, we definitely need the people from the hood. Oh yeah, people from the hood come down. Yeah. Yo, Biden. Yo, we gotta talk. Yo, Trump. Yo, it's we the people. We just had a couple questions for you. Come outside and talk. Yeah. You just got mad people outside. Yo. Every day. Yo. New York energy. Yo. Now, if White House don't show up, people don't come outside, hood know what to do. Be like, yo, that's crazy, bro. Hit the internet. Put some pressure on the people. And it's like, wow, we've been at the White House X amount of days, ain't come out, ain't talk to the people. That's crazy. That's crazy. I don't know what they trying to do, bro. But that's what it's like when people come together. People is like, yo, we need people to be the ones that's gonna not back down to deliver certain things to the place to where it needs to get. There's an ethic with the Karen in the culture. And the ethic is, I have a complaint. I am valuable. And for that reason, my complaint needs to be handled by someone who can handle the complaint. That's the ethic of the Karen. Now, if I'm to break that down, I would say that would be a lovely thing for any other culture to have other than European people. They have enough of that. You have enough of that. And I would say maybe I'm wrong in saying they don't have enough of that. It seems to be even a selectiveness and a distribution between that, because it's not like there's no such thing as poor white people, right? So there's a selectiveness in it all, and the distribution gets missed, and people are unseen and unheard. In a world where humans are doing their jobs as humans, there would not be an overwhelming amount of unheard, unseen people. We are not doing our job. I'm doing my job right now. I'm really getting my gears up. And part of my job is to get other people to do their job. And realizing that doing their job is necessary, and it's actually far more efficient and effective than the solutions that are being given to them by their handlers. What do I mean by handler? Someone who you trust other than yourself to handle a solution for you. Ultimately. What I'm saying right now doesn't fit into every situation. It mostly wouldn't fit into local situations, right? But if we're talking about big problems that have been around for a long time, there's not much to talk about. Okay, somebody wants this problem to be here. Or we're not really taking into account that whoever has been saying that they're contributing to solve the problem hasn't been doing enough. There needs to be more hands on deck. There needs to be another party involved. If people were more capable, more competent, if people were more competent, more emboldened to be in ways that make sense to them, and I'm not talking about mainstream projections, you know? It's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about mainstream projections. The bar is low. People say the bar is low. What do you mean when you say that? Oh, you mean the thing that's been irking me basically my entire manifestation on this planet, which is the lack of ethic, moral, and value being held, at least recognized in an awareness. It's just lawless. It from my and that's where the role of a father comes in, right? Because the father comes in and the father says, no. And he's like, I see that you think that's the right thing to do. I see that, but here's what's going to happen. There's a rigidity. And if men get hindered and sabotaged in certain ways, and they're not able to embody their masculinity in the way that they need to truly show up as men. So what happens during the Roe versus Wade? Women are saying, well, where are the men at? Where are the men speaking at? What men? The women who have men, guess what? The women who have real men, they're not complaining about where the real men are. People who talk the most on social media think that social media is all of the world. The majority of the thoughts on social media are people who think that social media is the world. People who live their lives go on Facebook, look around, go back to living their lives. If they even do that, some people still don't have Facebook. Some people still don't have Instagram. The expansion of the garden, metaphorically speaking, means that I, as a man, have to embody, own, and assert the light within me in a conscious manner so that I at all times represent and uphold that which I believe in. To a previous point, be the change you want to see in the world. That also links into a counter theme, a counter situation where a number of people who could possibly watching this video are losing hope in humanity. Why? There seems to be a drop in the ethic and the moral and the value, and it seems to be a trend, seems to be. Everything connects. Why are my people most loved? For their most honest and authentic expressions. Hip hop, jazz. We did a lot. I'm not going to go down the list. Did a lot. And look at how that's being represented now. I'm not going to say the obvious thing. That Sexyy Red is bad, or that she's basically a Trojan horse amongst a long line of Trojan horses specifically designed to make the youth more sexual minded and less critically enabled. I could say that obvious thing, even though the mechanics of having one star pop up, make music, and then people defending that by saying that the music is good, even though it's clearly a plant. I could say all those obvious things. But the thing that's not so obvious is the theme. It's very clear, if I was to reverse engineer this, that black people are actually really good right now. We're actually in an amazing place. Why? Why did I have this realization walking down the hood, realizing that all of the money in my environment is being sprawled out in a way to where the circulation is not coming back to the community? It's a powerful thing. Why? Because you gotta think, just on a real base level. You know, I must be pretty powerful for a system to be constructed to handicap me in a manner so extreme. And that's the reverse engineer. That's why I keep getting up. That's why I keep getting stronger. That's why during COVID, all I did was get stronger and more emboldened. Because it just confirmed everything that I experienced as a younger child. It's like, oh, you're trying to take my spirit. Pass. Oh, what are you going to use? Peer pressure? I dealt with peer pressure early. Real early. I went outside during the lockdowns. It was empty. Ghost town. I was doing walks during that time. I just started doing my walks. I just started allowing myself to first break into leaving my house consistently. I was taking walks. I was definitely an inside man for the most part. And once I started liking to take walks and I had that momentum going, I'm not going to let COVID stop that. And when I was ghost town, I was hearing they was giving tickets. Scary. I'm not trying to get a ticket. I'm also not trying to live in a world to where I can't take a walk. I felt like I was in an environment to where I'd see a couple of rebels outside. I was wrong. Really, really wrong. For all of my walks that I did during that period that was ghost town during initial lockdowns, there was one day I saw one other guy. I probably did like 3 days in the most intense parts of the lockdown. And only on one day I seen one other guy. That was it. Why do I say that? Fear is effective. And if you're not fortifying yourself to be in a certain position within yourself after COVID, which is essentially the greatest attack on spirit ever, it opened the gateway to spirit attacks. Roe versus Wade happened after COVID, right? The whole decline in men attacking women at each other's throats happened after COVID, right? All the drama between the presidents, the rising of the gas happened after COVID. These aren't separate instances. Inflation happened after COVID. This is a theme of COVID. COVID is, as far as street talk is, yo, run your pockets, give me your rights. You know what time it is? Don't do nothing stupid. Give me your rights. All right, stupid, and you go off and run. Some people bend over. Some people don't. The world is saved by the people who don't. We're here. That is not to say that it's not effective. To undermine the effectiveness of the plays that are made is to undermine the work that we have to do to separate ourselves from the damage. And part of the damage is our complacency with it. Because we get damaged and then we go to sleep. Straight to sleep. No. The undertone of COVID was Don't speak to anybody during this time. You may cause them harm. Have a long period of time in which the flow of communication amongst cultures stops. Have a period in time to where people are boxed in and have nothing but their thoughts and fears that are advertised, promoted. Are you a bad person for getting caught in a net? No. If a net is made and it's cast, it's going to catch whatever isn't small enough to wiggle through those holes of the net. And in my metaphor, I would say people could see a net being cast over a certain demographic or a sexual orientation leaning group. There's a net being cast. How do you retaliate against the net? You speak against the net. You speak against the things. You speak on the things that the net has done to you and how it's binded you. That's only one part of it, because you can't just do that. You also have to then position yourself in a place to where it's harder for that to happen. Otherwise, you're just someone who's made a new home. Capable people. Expansion doesn't have to be physical, and it's certainly not linear. There are many aspects to growing. I've been growing in ways that I haven't grown before, like learning how to relax. This year, I learned how to let myself relax physically, so to speak, because I'm always in a state of, I've come to realize, tension in my body. Not because of, I think, my energy, but because I just needed to stretch more, be more mobile, and my proclivity to stay inside and not communicate with humanity so much has led me to have physical restrictions. So now I'm focusing on moving more. That's one aspect of growth among many. And I've grown in mental ways, and I've grown in the heart in certain ways. And none of that is linear. They all contribute to me growing overall as an individual towards that which I need to do and enjoy. So I'm realizing there's things I need to enjoy as well. It's kind of hard to come to a point to where I guess you're flooded with all the ways in which you robbed yourself of experiencing life. That's definitely happened to me recently. I've spoken to enough elders to know that I'd rather deal with that voluntarily right now than to sit on my deathbed and then have a whole other plus 30 years of concentrated memory of additional instances in which I was not living my life. The weight as it is now is crushing, so on my deathbed, I imagine it would make my passing less than optimal. I brought up the hood, I brought up the projects, I brought up the schematics of the products and the underlying themes. I brought up the aim of it, and the aim of it is to keep black people, melanated people, unilateral, thinking about staying in the same place, doing the same things, and not expanding themselves. Because to that particular culture, right, that is, that particular culture, if emboldens other cultures to do things that those cultures need to do to free themselves from the spells that, because every culture has a binding spell, so to speak. And if I had to make an assessment, I would say that black people, as far as a diaspora, seem to be very capable in influencing through speech, and highlighting through speech, um, and detail and poetic manners and beautiful manners. Things that need to be paid attention to, things that need to be loved, things that need to be taken into consideration, right? As far as the diaspora is concerned, like we are a mouthpiece, not a mouthpiece. We're a speaker. We're a loudspeaker, right? Not to say that we're the only ones, but I'm just saying in general, based on our natural temperaments, especially African people, all of that just real cut. You know, I know Japanese people are like that too, but as far as influence is concerned, right? So yeah, if you wanna keep the entire world in a vibrational state to where they don't have the tools to tackle their cultural, I would say, their cultural ills, you would definitely keep black people under the biggest thumb possible. That's what you would do. And if I had to think about it, I would say, well, why would you do that? It's two reasons you would do that. There's the reason that you set it up to make me compelled to believe, but you made it easy to think in this way, which is I'm a victim and the world is against me. Made that really easy for me to believe that, and that's also part of the mechanism. It's part of the projects, because the projects is not just the physical place, it's the intent behind the programming. It's the intent behind how you're habitually created. Like, what are your habits right now? You grew up in the projects, and what are the habits of other project people? You all have the same things hindering you from entering the same things. And that's same dynamic is present in other cultures. Other cultures have specific habits that they continually do over and over again. And those habits are suboptimal. There's no way to realize or bring that suboptimal behavior to a realized place if you're not expanding your domain, if you're not open to expanding your domain, if you're not like me, who was my heart, the way that I am within myself, genuinely wired to not, or over time, no, I wouldn't say wired, disinterested in talking to people, disinterested in communicating with people, disinterested in being seen, disinterested in being known that I exist. I would love to exist behind the scenes. That's where I'm coming from. I had to do work within myself to bring myself to a point to where I could go outside. I had to make a decision to fight against my recline into a virtual, closed off, distant reality. Why? I mean, my heart said things that I believed, and since I believed them, it's either I acted on those things or I torment myself. And if I'm not tormenting myself, I'm building a lifestyle to where I could avert my eyes from the fact that there's some element of torment going on. There's an element of lack. There's an element of limit unnecessarily as far as the human is concerned. That's not as nature intended it. It's an abstraction of the mind itself. Not a limit placed by God, but a limit placed by the extraction of the mind itself. It makes it a limit of a different kind. It makes it a limit that you could apprehend. You could tackle it. And you can win. Because you're capable. Wow. You really have to be some kind of main character to live on a globe with varying countries and then just grow up in an environment. There's an aspect in which it could be said that the world is against. But that's only because of the limited understanding of the world and the many ways in which the world presents itself. Why did I make the decision that I made? I said, well, I don't really like people, and people suck. So I'm staying inside. And I had a couple of thoughts. Sometimes I like to talk to the moon. I'd go on my rooftop. I'd talk to the moon. I'd ask it questions. Something didn't make sense to me. It's like, I'm sitting here saying that I don't like people, that people suck, that humanity's weak. And I just had this thought, like, I don't even know people. I'm like, you know what? I don't have enough data to make this conclusion. I don't have enough data to settle on this train of thought. I need to know more before I give up. I need to learn more before I surrender. Because from what I'm looking at, which is just the way I think things really are, the way I think things really are, I think I don't know how things really are. And in that place, during that time, I would describe that as humility. The ultimate kind. And I've been blessed for that humility. I've been blessed by meeting people who represent the closest manifestations of my heart chakra. And that has been beautiful. It's also recently been very overwhelming to me. Again, because of I had a plan for my life, and the plan was basically constructed in a time to where I had these distant tendencies. And unlike now, I did not have a desire to connect or to learn how to connect with people or to engage with people past a certain extent. And that's challenging because now it's like, oh my God, I'm meeting these people, and I met this woman and she feels like home, and what does that mean? I've lived an entire life. Experience is very different from that. What do I do? Do what I've always been doing, man. I've been listening, and one thing that I'm really this is my phase, this is my time now, because I've been an observer for so long. I've been watching for so long. Now it's action time. It's time for me to do things for me. And this is for me, because it's getting harder to pretend like I have the limits that most people have. It's getting harder to pretend like the problems that people have are things I perceive as problems. I'm eventually just gonna break into boss mode, but not like a forced, stereotypical boss mode where I puff my chest out, because simply not my style. But just the mode that I enter where I accept the fact that I have the ability to lead, to guide, and to let people do what they can, and to show them, or at least highlight when there's someone else who can do that thing or should do that thing. You know? There's so many nuances. That's why I talk about the relative and the absolute. You have your own relative matrix. I have my own relative matrix. And I've been working with that matrix to end up where I'm at right now, to where I can break barriers and open portals for people to contribute in ways that were previously not possible. And I can do that intentionally, and I can do that consciously now, even though I'm far less structured than I would like to be. Bringing this to a close, yeah. I wrote some things. It makes sense in the thinking mind to encourage the lords of order to own what's in their relative domain so that they could simultaneously embody their most natural expressions, and by doing so, fill the gaps that are caused by the lack of those expressions that contributes to the lack of distribution in energy, money, finances, resource. I'm going to keep going because I believe that, especially since people keep telling me that I'm already there, I can demonstrate the power of the embodiment and why it should be done and why we should change the structure of things. Stars should be no more, and if stars and idols are to continue to be, they need to be conceptually apprehended in a manner that's optimal. Stars out of reach? No. If you have a star, if you have an idol, you can do anything they can do. But you shouldn't do anything they could do simply because they can do it and you idolize them. What you need to do is listen to them, listen to how they think, and imagine what your life would look like if you could think those thoughts truly. Try to bring yourself to a place to where you can feel those feelings truly. Think about the things that would make you feel that way or think in that way, truly. And prioritize that, because that's what the world needs. That's what the world is missing. The trend has always been here. That's the thing. The only reason why the trend seems to be gaining ground now is because the change that's taking place is so radical that the trend won't be able to affect the environment to the capacity that it has been up until now. The people are rising. We are rising. Yes. 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 I'm gonna close with a sound bowl too, because I kind of wanna do that. So that was my breakdown. There's some other aspects of the projects that are fully known. I am not contributing to anything consciously if I'm truly in my centered place towards anything along the lines of a victim mentality or being someone other than a master of circumstances and someone who can make the most of it. Because that's what I've done. That's what I've energetically positioned myself to be able to do, and I successfully did it with far less guidance than I could have had. And because I did that, I know that I can guide others to do it. At this point now, it's taken me some time walking the path to believe that I could guide others. Sorry, to genuinely uh, put effort towards guiding others. I know I can guide people. I don't really care to guide people because I have to know. I would like to know whether a person really wants to be helped or not, which is why I'm on YouTube, which is why I'm not doing advertisements of any sort, which is why I'm not staying on a particular topic of any sort. It's because I can really handle almost any conceptual problem for a person that there is by undoing their suboptimal thinking. And people have done that for me as well and will continue to do that for me. And why is that? Because as far as thinking is concerned, it's a very large spectrum. And I, as a keel, have a certain chunk of that spectrum. And what is that chunk of the spectrum called? It's called my domain. I have jurisdiction there, I have knowledge there, I have abilities there. And I'm coming to fully respect the domain of others. I would love to make most of my respect for others' domain by having others actually make use of their domain, inhabit their domain. Imagine a reality in which people realize that their body pains could be fixed by being conscious in their body. Oh my, it's aching, it's aching. It's like you should probably put some consciousness there. You're falling asleep. The flow is missing. The life force is missing. I had some experiences with the movement of energy at the root. And man, that circulation it can really clear things up everywhere. When the stream is flowing and you're able to smile and you're in that space to where you can dance and not think about who's thinking what. Everybody's just enjoying themselves. Yeah, I said enough. Uh, I might do another one on the domain next time. We'll see about that. We'll see how that goes. Was I gonna talk anything other than the projects as far as the domain is concerned? I don't know. Tension isn't a bad thing. Sometimes tension is used to hold things together. So I have this mentality where even during turbulent times, I can kind of understand where I'm at and where the general populace is at as far as the phase. It's like, okay, this is the phase where we're dealing with, loving ourselves and relaxing our nervous systems. Incredibly powerful things. Love you guys. I didn't write on the whiteboard today, though I did have fun standing next to it. It was a blast. I will be using it next time. I will be at some point drifting into tackling widely known concepts such as free will, things of that nature. Love you guys. I can't shake the feeling that there's something else I should be saying, but I'm looking at the time. It says 2 hours. It's like, can't really tell if I talk people's ear off or not. Are they really hearing what I'm saying? And I don't really have to worry about that because I'm doing it in a way to where I don't have to worry about that, because just leaving it on YouTube, and I'm gonna meet people, and this video is always gonna be here. So let's just call this a preemptive strike. Preemptive strike of love. I want to love better. So it was a really interesting phase of my life that I'm in right now. Just going through what I'm going through. Being as stable as I am through all the instability. Perks of the suffering that I went through. And in my personal experience, I feel as though if you suffer properly, then you gain a reward that forever enables you to come in contact with your center, even in the most turbulent of times. And that's very valuable to me. And people have other values. It seems as though, based on how they react to me, that they value that as well, which is why I'm making the human element. It seems that I've aligned myself with certain things that people should just know they could align with if they decided to. And there are some people who need to be pushed to make that a decision. And there's some people who just need to know that that decision is a decision that could be made. I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything. Like I said before, this is a communal growth. I'm growing as I'm doing this, allowing myself to sharpen by not restricting my speech. And allowing myself to be seen. Those two things combined together, people telling me a lot. They have an ability to put things into words. So I hope I put things into words. I make a video. Somebody get some help. Somebody smile. Good day. And on that note, I'm closing out because I really have nothing else to say other than beautiful things. I literally just talked about not some of the worst elements of the project, because those parts of those are known to many. But the fact that those elements are there and people are still able to do what they do, people are still doing what they're doing right now at the time that they're doing it. You can believe what you want to believe. You can believe that you're limited. There's always a point in the human at the top of the food chain, the most capable being on the planet. There's always a point that a person reaches in their evolution, especially in today, to where the responsibility is just undeniable. And it's undeniable in the eyes of nature. So if you fool yourself to deny something that's undeniable in the eyes of nature, you wind up working against yourself. And I would love to be in an environment of people who are not working against themselves, because one of my struggles right now is I'm strong, man. I'm getting a little bit worried. Also, not I'm letting go. I'm really letting go. But man, I'm crazy, man. Like, people be mad sometimes. I just be smiling. Like, I'm supposed like I know like you're mad, but like I'm way too in control of the fact that I can be happy, and I've already had enough experiences to learn to change my decision and apprehension in life. What do I mean by that? Okay, so I didn't want to shine, I didn't want to show up, I didn't want to express myself in the ways that are most natural to me, because people just start shaking up and stuff. It's like, whoa, too much power. Now it's like, new Akil, new belief system, upgraded belief system. No such thing as too much power. Some people need to be shaken up. Some people need to have a foot on their neck. Some people need to get checked. And some people need to be smiled at and hugged and listened to. Especially listened to. I'm glad to be able to provide that for people. Anyway, closing out. I love you. Love yourself as I am coming to love myself. We will do what needs to be done and have fun while doing so. Cry sometimes, but we'll have a lot of fun. All right? Signing out, guys.